Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. Previously, Bai was accepted as a disciple to become an immortal. In the immortal realm, Bai would discover that his chosen walk is able to double the power of anything he puts in it. However, he loses some lifespan when he does. Later, Bai would find an egg on his journey to reach Foundation Establishment, and was shocked to find that it hatched into the Beast King. Unfortunately for Bai, it shows that it's just as mischievous as he is when it is caught stealing several undergarments. The story continues as news has spread rapidly about the Beast King being the culprit behind the stolen undergarments. Stories would be told about the psycho undergarment thief, and they end with the thief getting the punishment it deserved. After causing such an absurd disaster, Chief Li sent the Beast King Tidon into the Valley of 10,000 Snakes to reflect on its mistake. As for Bai, it was determined that he didn't discipline Tidon well enough, but thanks to his sincere practice of abstinence, he did not receive the same fate. Instead, Bai was ordered to immediately head to the Forbidden Ancestral Grounds to receive the test of the ancestral inheritance. Once there, Bai enters a freezing temple where he explains that he has come to accept inheritance. Just then, he sees what he believes to be a manifestation of an elder immortal, and profusely apologizes for disturbing its peace. To his surprise, the manifestation just ends up being Zoe, and out of embarrassment, Bai pretends to not have noticed her. She demands more respect out of Bai since they are now both elders of the Spirit Stream sector. Zoe ignores Bai's taunts and explains that Guya managed to activate 20 inheritances, so she fully expects Bai to do the same. Bai is confident he can do more as he makes his way further into the temple, but is surprised to see nothing happen after he asks to be enlightened. He does it more respectfully the second time and watches in amazement as something begins to happen. Onlookers can see from afar that an inheritance has been activated at the Forbidden Ancestral Grounds, and Beihanli mocks Bai for only being able to activate one single pillar of light. However, everyone including Guya is astonished when Bai triggers a sight that no one has ever seen until now. Yuan can't believe that Bai was able to stir up such an intense response from the inheritances, and determines that it can only mean that the depth of Bai's latent abilities has reached an unimaginable level. The talking monkey joins in the amazement as he explains that Bai has activated an absurd 100 pillars of light, and points out how that means all the inheritances have opened up to him. Unfortunately, Bai can only choose one, and the monkey hopes that he will be up for the test. Inside the temple, Bai has amazed himself with the activation, but is told by a voice that he can only choose one to comprehend. Bai points out how difficult it is to be so outstanding, and determines that he wants to just choose them all. However, the inheritances are then pulled away without Bai managing to get even one. Bai is clearly upset, but compliments the voice of the voice, causing something else to happen. Bai expresses his disappointment to see that it's just some lousy stone, but tries to take it back when it begins to disappear. The stone only returns though when Bai compliments the voice once more, so he determines that the person in control must love hearing praise. Bai unleashes the greatest compliment he has ever given, but is furious to see that all he received for it is a wordless inheritance. There is nothing to read, but the voice explains that with the right mindset, even nothing will become something. Just then, Bai remembers that Li once gave him one drop of heaven-reaching river water, and said to use it if he ever encountered a situation that could not be resolved. Bai figures it's worth a shot and uses the drop of heaven-reaching river water on the wordless book. He is then amazed to see that there is a response, and the runes are being absorbed. Bai remembers that heaven-reaching water is extremely corrosive, and hopes that it doesn't damage the book, but is startled when the water drop that has absorbed the runes enters his body. Everyone watching is then shocked to see that an inheritance that has never been offered before has appeared, and Yuan points out that it's the one and only hidden inheritance. The hidden inheritance has never been activated, and it is now clear that Bai is destined for this. The voice explains that this power will spread through his entire body and strengthen it. It is called the Heaven-Reaching River Water Ultimate. After cultivating this power, Bai is able to materialize a remarkable technique called the Heaven-Reaching Eyes of the Law. He is able to perceive all beings and clearly understand everything. Just then, Bai hears a voice that complains about how Bai ruined his entire life. Bai removes everything from his pouch to find that the voice is coming from the mask he found earlier. Bai is certain that someone is in the mask, but grows frustrated when he can't get them to come out. Bai takes the mask to the heaven-reaching river and is amazed at how different it looks with his eyes of the law. Bai throws the mask towards the corrosive river water, and the person in the mask finally comes out. Bai is ready to eliminate the guy, but he introduces himself as Dan of the Bloodstream sector and begs that Bai not take his life. Bai is shocked at such a tough sounding name, especially when Dan offers to do any task he asks of him. Bai isn't interested though, so Dan offers to be a spy for the Spirit Stream sector and give them intel on the Bloodstream sector. Bai doesn't care much about that either, but does gain interest when the man reveals he knows the huge secret concerning eternity. Bai encourages him to go on, so Dan explains that it's a relic of eternity hidden inside the secret room under Middle Peak's Bloodmaster Hall in the Bloodstream sector. As long as Bai opens the door with a special elixir, he will be able to obtain the item and access the secret of eternity. Bai doesn't believe Dan could know this stuff when he states that not even the patriarchs know this information, but he reveals that he isn't actually part of the Bloodstream sector. He was given the mask by a mysterious person, instructing him to disguise himself as the dead Yi Zhang, and told about the relic of eternity. Furthermore, there's only a 50% chance of success to refine the elixir to open the door, and the ingredients are extremely hard to come by. Bai is then glad to hear that one of the most rare ingredients is actually Beast King blood. Bai then questions how Dan was able to go undiscovered, and he explains that the mask is able to change your entire body's appearance while also hiding your power level. Bai accidentally drops the mask into the corrosive river, and Dan can't bear to watch as his home is being destroyed. His soul won't last without shelter, so Bai offers to let him stay inside his pouch for the time being. The two are set to leave, but pause for a moment as Bai is shocked to see the mask re-emerge from the river, making him realize how much of a treasure it is. Just then, Tidon appears to surprise Bai. Bai can't believe how big he has gotten and realizes that Tidon must have been eating the snakes in the Valley of 10,000 Snakes. That night, Bai treats him to a delicious meal, and Tidon wastes no time devouring it all. Bai has run out of spirit stones to pay for the rest of the food and attempts to use credit, but the restaurant doesn't accept that, even from elders. Bai takes off as fast as he can while proclaiming that he is going to get some spirit stones, but they don't believe him and kick out Tidon. Sometime later, Bai flies around using the spiritual magnetic wings given to him by the elders, and finds that it's able to give him bursts of extremely high speeds. He is glad to have finally refined the wings, but is unable to fully control them at the moment, as he crashes into some chickens. Just then, we see people make a large commotion as the missing Wan has finally returned to the spirit sector. Bai accidentally comes crashing into her and expresses relief to see her as he couldn't find her in the Fallen Sword Abyss. Wan has hit Bai every single time they have met before, so he is shocked to see that she doesn't this time. Tidon seems to show that something is strange about her as well, when he continuously growls at her. Yun then arrives to greet his sister, who he thought had died, but is heartbroken when she doesn't seem to remember him. She seems to only trust Bai as she goes with Yun only when Bai reminds her that Yun is her brother. When alone, Bai thinks about how strange Wan seemed and thinks about investigating what she went through in the Fallen Sword Abyss. Tidon clearly wants Bai to stay away from her, but Bai explains that he didn't sense any danger, and points out how she smiled at him before she left. He ultimately decides to stop thinking about her altogether, since she has returned safely, and focus on his training instead. Tidon hides in fear as Bai realizes his training is pretty dangerous for anyone around, and we see just why as he begins. Bai starts by cultivating the undying indestructibility. It requires the absorption of large amounts of spiritual energy, and he explains that the heaven-reaching river bank he trains near couldn't be more suitable. The technique explosively increases his strength, and the move he practices is called the 10-elephant savage ghost. Bai states that just practicing the level of 1 elephant nearly uses up all his spiritual energy, and he couldn't even form the complete elephant. Just then, we see that controlling the technique is quite difficult, as Bai's body transforms itself in ways that he doesn't want them to. The transfer of spiritual energy is too unstable right now, but Bai refuses to give up since the technique grants such great power. He gets the idea from Tidon to refine a grade 4 ki boosting pill to use instead of the heaven-reaching river, since it will be easier for him to control. The only problem is that refining a 4th grade pill requires a higher level of mastery of the medicinal path. Just then, Bai becomes excited as he remembers that he was given the Frigid Sector medicinal scroll. Activating it brings him to tears, but we see that it's actually because he can't understand what's written. Elsewhere, Yuan points out that the Spirit Stream sector is becoming very strong after Wan's return, since that means they now have another Foundation Establishment disciple. However, the other 3 sectors are becoming more upset and are simply waiting for the perfect time to act. The elders are glad to see that Bai is training hard though, and the city is at peace now that he hasn't been refining pills. However, just then, Yuan is shocked to hear that strange weather has begun to form, and we see that it's because Bai is trying to refine the grade 4 pill. He has made quite a few adjustments to his normal technique, but finds that it doesn't go well. Back in the city, everyone is told to immediately take shelter, and they do so frantically, as some question if Bai's pill refining is really that destructive. The new disciples are informed of stories from the past, when Bai's refining caused acid to rain down on them for days, and even mutated animals so that they could speak human words. Bai Hanli is shocked to see that Bai actually had the guts to refine pills inside the patriarch's ancestral hall, and Tianyu instructs Bai Hanli to help him suppress the furnace while everyone else runs away. The two attempt to stop Bai, but only end up getting mocked by him. The sector leader Yuan arrives to scold the two for making a scene, but Bai takes responsibility for being too eager to refine the pill. Yuan continues to scold the two others though, since their destroyed clothes makes it clear that they are too weak. Yuan tries to explain that if they were as strong as he is, then they would have been able to stop Bai. However, the cauldron explodes once more, and Yuan is now the one with destroyed clothing. Bai apologizes while stating that he didn't do it on purpose, but Yuan prepares to rid the sector of Bai anyway. However, Tidon jumps in to take the damage for Bai. They make the perfect pair as Bai dramatically states how they have shared so much time together for the past several years, as Tidon's little hand drops, and Yuan is left to question what he has done. When Bai gets them to a safe distance, he tells Tidon to stop pretending, and it does. Bai realizes that he has provoked the sector leader and staying there is no longer safe. Bai can only think of one place he would like to go, but is interrupted when Yuan captures him. Bai is in trouble for betraying the ancestors and destroying the ancestral hall. Yuan is disappointed and repulsed at how Bai deceived him, but points out how amazed he is that little Tidon was able to withstand his attack. Yuan wants Bai to set a better example for Tidon, instead of tarnishing its pure young heart with acts of deceit. Yuan begins to tell Bai what his punishment will be, but Bai states that his own punishment should be that he has to leave to gain experience. Bai has realized that he is currently a piece of immortal iron, but only through difficult experiences will he become an immortal sword. Bai dramatically points out how he is certain that it will be difficult for Yuan to let him leave, and is sure that the sector leader will even beg him to stay, but is surprised when Yuan agrees to let him go as there is no time to waste. Bai points out that he hasn't had time to pack yet though, but Yuan instantly gives him a bag of spirit stones, elixirs, and all the protective artifacts he needs to begin his journey immediately. Bai would like to pick a date in the future instead, but Yuan points out that there is no better time than now. Bai is only allowed time to say goodbye, and we see that Bai Hanli is unexpectedly affected by his departure. Bai is upset that he won't be able to say goodbye to Li, but Yuan explains that he will inform Li when he is done training. Mei says her goodbye, and Bai explains to Zhang that he will be leaving Tidon with him. Bai says goodbye to his adopted son and begins to leave. He turns to make a final request to have his home made into a more sturdy one, but Yuan sends him on his way. Mei cries after seeing her friend leave, but everyone else in the sector prepares to celebrate for 3 days straight. Bai flies off at extreme speeds and sets out to the Bloodstream sector in search of the Relic of Eternity. Sometime later, Bai is nearing the Bloodstream sector, and Dan explains how he gets terrified every time he is there. Bai questions if the mask really works, and Dan reiterates that it's able to change a person's entire appearance, their voice, aura, and everything else. Dan used it to hide in the Bloodstream sector for several years, and not even the elders could see through it. Furthermore, the mask fuses with the skin, so spiritual energy must be used to remove it. Bai is confident that he won't be recognized now, but realizes that he needs to learn some background on the Bloodstream sector. According to legend, during ancient times, a mysterious giant perished in the heaven-reaching river. He was full of rage and vengeance, so in that moment, he shook his palm at the heavens. Bai doesn't believe any of what Dan is saying, but is then shocked when they finally arrive at the Bloodstream sector, and he sees a hand-shaped mountain. Dan heads back into the pouch as they approach the gate. He explains that the Spirit and Bloodstream sector are currently fighting non-stop, so the identity checking array at the gate has been strengthened. Dan wants Bai to be careful, but reminds him of the saying that nothing ventured, nothing gained. Bai finally makes it to the gate and is glad to hear that his identity as Yi Zhang has been confirmed. Something is a bit strange though, as Bai gets a feeling that he felt once before when fighting Song. He notices that his undying power is reacting to the bloodstream sector key and begins to wonder if they must have some special connection. Bai is shocked as he gets carried away, but Dan explains that it's simply the transport array taking them past the 5 peaks and straight into the inner sector. Dan warns him though that at night the entire land turns into a nest of demons. When he arrives, Bai immediately notices how rude everyone is there, and it is explained that the bloodstream sector focuses on individual strength. The weak are bullied and the strong are feared. It's clear that the bloodstream sector is much more dangerous and a lot less cheerful than the spirit stream sector. Nearby, it is explained that the situation around the border is becoming tense, so everyone needs to undergo an examination before heading home. Furthermore, anyone who fails to do so will be considered a traitor to the sector and an accomplice of the spirit stream sector's elder, Bai. Disciples are insulted to even hear Bai's name and proclaim that they would skin and eat Bai alive if he were there. Luckily, Bai is in disguise, but unfortunately he runs into a man that turns him into the elder for behaving suspiciously. Bai is then shocked to see that the elder is Shan from the Fallen Sword Abyss. Shan notices that Bai looks very familiar, but luckily another disciple arrives to point out how this person is Yi Zhang. He explains that Yi Zhang was with them when they attacked Bai, but everyone died except now for Yi Zhang. They begin to think that Yi Zhang made some type of deal with Bai, but Shan explains that the elder Bai is a ruthless monster that would never leave any survivors. Shan does want to know how he managed to survive, so Bai continues acting as Yi Zhang and dramatically explains that he actually was prepared to die fighting Bai, but just ended up being tortured by him. After waking up amongst a pile of corpses, he decided to live on in disgrace, with the goal of one day avenging his fellow sector members so that they can rest in peace. Shan still won't let Yi Zhang in, but changes his mind when Yi Zhang bribes him with everything he plundered from the Fallen Sword Abyss. Yi Zhang is admired as someone willing to do anything to get into the inner sector, and Bai thinks about how different everything is from the spirit stream sector. Before he can enter though, a noble girl named Su Mei arrives, and onlookers are amazed at how she has achieved Earthly Vein Foundation establishment. She will likely be promoted to master soon, which means she will rule over a peak of her own, and her status will be even more outstanding. Bai is then shocked to see that it's the girl in the mask from earlier, but is then threatened by Su Mei's guard for looking directly at Su Mei. Bai must think quickly and decides that saying he was mesmerized by her dashing figure is the best excuse. He is about to be punished but lucks out when the powerful Song arrives. He is acknowledged as Su Mei's rival since they are both fighting to be Bloodmaster of Middle Peak. Bai attempts to sneak away since he fears being recognized by all these people he has met before, but is stopped by Shan. Shan wants to know whose side he is on, but Bai says they are both very good. Su Mei mocks Song for being defeated easily by Bai, and he becomes infuriated to just hear Bai's name. Song instantly attacks, easily taking out Su Mei's guard, and the two rivals have an intense battle. The two fighters seem evenly matched, but Su Mei ends up being the clear winner, and she states that once she becomes Bloodmaster, she will expel Song from Middle Peak. Just then, Bai attempts to leave, but turns to find that everyone has fallen. Shan is shocked to see that he wasn't injured at all by the pressure of the two rivals fighting, and Bai fears that this will give his identity away. Bai calculates that he might be able to escape, but his imagination shows that it doesn't go so well. He decides not to act so impulsively anymore, as that will only raise suspicion, and begins to act as if he has actually been injured. He decides to make it extra dramatic and bites down on his tongue so he can spit out a mouthful of blood. Everyone sees the large amount of blood he spit out, and realize that he is even more injured than they are. Bai pretends to question if he is actually going to die, and Shan points out how he must actually have some kind of hidden defense. Shan assumes this is how he survived Bai's attack, and Song becomes curious after hearing that name. Song is certain that a normal person like Yi Zhang couldn't survive an attack from Bai, and determines that Yi Zhang must be hiding something. Thanks for watching part 13, 6,000 likes and I'll know you want a part 14. Also, all other parts are in the link comment below.